Hey YouTube, it's the Crafty Missy here. Today I'm going to show you how to sew yourself this cute quilted pincushion that's shaped like a flower. This is mine. I made this yesterday, and as you can see, I've used kind of cute scrappy fabrics in this. Now the top here is quilted and the bottom is just one fabric. If you want to, you can also make the bottom quilted. And there's a cute little button in the middle. This is a pretty big pincushion. I like big ones, but you can make this any size. You can make a smaller one if you want to. Now let's move on to what you will need for this project. First of all, you will need fabric scraps. I personally like to use cotton. I think that's a really nice material, but you can use any kind of fabrics you have. If you don't have any fabric scraps, then you will just need to cut them. I cut mine from all these cute printed cotton fabrics that I had. So, scraps of fabric is number one. Number two, you will need to get either a fabric cutter, this is a rotary cutter by Fiskars, or then fabric scissors. And for the rotary cutter, a ruler is always good. This is a patchwork ruler by Fiskars. A cutting mat if you are using a rotary cutter. You will also need batting. Now I have a big bag of batting here. Actually, not batting, this is filling. I'm sorry, I get my terms mixed up. But this is filling, you know, the kind of stuff that you put inside teddy bears if you want to make them. So just filling. You will also need a plate. Now the plate will determine the size of your pincushion. I did this pincushion, which is pretty big, with an 8-inch plate. Now that means that the diameter was 8 inches. This one is a smaller one. Let's check the diameter. This one is about 6 inches. So this will make a smaller pincushion, but you can even go down to 4 inches to make a smaller pincushion. You will also need a sewing machine. Mine is here, threaded and ready, and I've threaded it with this pink thread. Now you can use any color thread you want to, because it doesn't really show that much here. And you will of course also need a small pair of scissors to cut your thread. Now let's get on to the first phase of making your pincushion. The first phase of making your pincushion is to arrange your fabric scraps onto something on which your plate will go. So I have arranged my fabric scraps here. It does not have to be a perfect circle or a perfect rectangle or square or anything. Just make sure that your plate fits on there and that there's quite a lot of space around it, because this will get smaller as we sew these together. And it is good to keep extra fabric scraps available, because like I said, this will get much smaller after we have sewn all this together. So I will probably have to add some scraps on the edges here. But once you have found the way that you like your kind of quilted top to look, then keep them like this and start sewing these onto each other. And the way that you do this is, of course, you always sew right sides together. Now I'm going to start sewing this way. I'm going to take this scrap from here, turn it over onto this fabric scrap here, and then I will simply sew them here, leaving a small seam allowance. Doesn't have to be half an inch, it can be even smaller, because that really kind of doesn't matter here. So I would sew them from there. Then I would open my now sewn thing. Now these would be sewn together, and then I would probably sew this red piece, turn it over again, right sides together, and sew it from there. Now I'm going to start sewing, and then I'm going to come back to you for phase 2. I have now sewn together some of these scraps, and it's looking really cute. And I thought that I would show you especially for beginning sewers, what you will have to sometimes do as you go. Now I'm going to attach this scrap right here so that it will be here like this. But if you look at this, I have this pointy tip here, a kind of a long one here, and even something going on in here. Now it's much easier if you cut these off. So I will just take this ruler, place it right here, and go right there with my rotary cutter, so I will get a completely nice clean edge. So as you go, you will probably have to do some cutting there as well, but keep doing that because it's much nicer to sew these together when you have a nice even seam there. Right now I have sewn together all my scraps. I left some, at least one I didn't sew here. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to press this, and the way that I'm going to press this is first I'm going to press these seams flat on the wrong side, and then I'm going to press it flat on the top side. I've now pressed my piece, my quilted piece, and I pressed first these, as I said, I first pressed from the wrong side and then I pressed from the right side. Now the next step is to think which fabric you want to use for the bottom side. Now if you want to, you can make 2 of these quilted pieces and have an all-around quilted pincushion, but I chose a fabric for the bottom. I chose this blue gingham. It's the same as this one here. The reason why I chose this is kind of sturdy fabric, so I thought that that would be really good. Now I actually changed my plate from the beginning of this tutorial because I wanted to make a little smaller pincushion than what the other plate would have made. This is about 5-something inches in diameter. Now next what you will do is you will put your plate on top of your backing fabric and your quilted piece, and you will cut around leaving a little extra. Now that might be 1/2 inch if you're used to that, but here you can see how much I've left. I did not measure this. I just cut around this plate, leaving a nice enough edge there. So that's my backing fabric ready to go, and next I'm going to place my plate on top of my quilted piece and try to find a good spot for it. Now as you can see, my quilted piece is a little scant maybe on some places, so I'm going to have to be very careful how I put this on here, and then I'm going to cut around it, leaving also an edge, the kind of edge that you just saw me leave on the backing fabric. So I'll cut this and then I'll come back. Now I've cut both pieces, so here they are cut, and the next thing you're going to do is put them together right side by right side. Now this fabric, the bottom one, does not have a right side, so it doesn't matter which way I put it. My bottom piece is a little bigger, as you can see, than my top piece, but that doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. So just put them there approximately on top of each other. If you have, like me, your top piece is smaller or your bottom piece is smaller, then put the smaller piece on top, because it's easier to see when you sew that you're not, leaving too much of an edge there. So put the smaller piece on top, and next you will sew, leaving a small edge there, small seam allowance, and just with a regular stitch and all around it, but leave a little opening, something like that maybe. So leave a part of it open, just sew around it like that, and then leave an opening. And after that, if you want to finish the edges the way at least I always do, I go around it once more, very close to my stitch, with a zigzag stitch. Now I'll do that and then I'll come back again. Here's how my piece looks now that I have sewn it. Let me go here that you can see. Let me find a spot where you might be able to see that. Maybe there. So I have stitched it with a regular stitch. and then gone right by with a zigzag stitch. I've also trimmed the edges, so I had a little bit of extra here in the edges, so I trimmed it with my fabric scissors. And I've left my opening here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this right side over. Here my pincushion is turned right side to the right side, and this is how it looks. This spot is still open, but we need to keep that open because next we're going to put in the batting. No, sorry, not batting, filling. I keep saying batting, please excuse me. So anyway, I have this big bag of batting, so I will just rip off little pieces and put them in there. I will make sure that I get it everywhere, even at the bottom, as evenly as I can. And then when I have finished filling it so that I can still, I can still work here so that it's not stuffed too full. Be careful of that. You don't want it to be too full. So I'm going to turn these back a little. These both, I'm going to fold them like this. Hard to do with one hand. And then I'm going to sew with very small stitches with my sewing needle. So no machine stitching here. Then I'm just going to sew with very, very small stitches. Probably going to choose a blue thread if I have that. If I don't, I'm just going to go with the pink. Really doesn't matter. And I'm going to come back once I have done that. Alright, so now I have filled with the stuffing, and I found some pale blue thread, and I have made a knot at the other end of that thread. And then I have gone through with my needle from the inside of my opening at the very corner here. You can see here is my thread coming from there, and that is to hide the knot inside this opening, because I don't obviously want the knot to show. The next stage then is to fold these edges nicely and put them together like this, and then I'm gonna sew this closed with very small stitches. I can't really show it to you here on camera, but the way that I do it, you can do it if you know some other good stitch for stitching with something like this. But I'm just gonna go through. This is not very neat right now. Let me see if I can get it to look better there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my needle through here, both of these layers like this, and I'm gonna just pull it through. This is just a sample stitch, by the way. I don't know how this is gonna work. Probably not very well, because let me try to do that. Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of like tighten that, and then I'm gonna take another one right beside it, a small stitch, and that way I'm gonna go through all of this opening. So let me do that, and then I'll return. So now I have finished sewing my pincushion. I did the small stitches, and then I made a couple of knots, very small knots, and then I put the thread through this seam and cut it to finish it off. So here's the pincushion, and I notice it has a kind of a funny pattern. It has these two bigger scraps there, and it has smaller scraps on the sides. Kind of funny. I didn't intend that to happen, but it did. So the next thing we're going to do is make it look like a flower. So we're going to sew it so that it will have these plump petals. For that, you will need something I noticed I did not remember to say at the beginning of this video, but I'm gonna say it now. So you will need one button of your choice that fits in with your fabrics. It can be any size you want to. Obviously, too small a button will not show. I have this button, and then you will need some embroidery thread. I have this DMC. You can also see this on one of my summer hauls. I think it's Summer Craft Haul number 1. So this is kind of like a light dusky purple color, but it really does fit well with these fabrics. And the way I'm going to start this, and this is a little bit difficult now to do since I am on camera, but I'm just going to show you how to start it. Let me put my camera down. So the way that I'm going to do this is I have threaded my needle with this embroidery thread, and I have tied a knot here at the end, and I'm going to start off from the bottom. Now this is pretty thick, as you can see, and it is much thicker than my needle, so I'm going to have to do a little scrunching like this. And I'm gonna find the approximately the middle here. That could be there. And then I'm gonna push my needle, or actually first I'm gonna scrunch it a little bit, then I'm gonna just push my needle in and just carefully pushing with your fingers. There's my needle. Didn't enter exactly from the middle, so I'm gonna try again. Let me see. That's better. Yeah. So then I'm gonna just pull it, pull it through. We have a kink here. Let me work that kink off. There we go. So then I'm gonna just push that. There we go. There it is now, and I have pushed it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enter at the same spot. But what I need to do is I'm kind of putting the thread here, and I'm pulling it, and I'm kind of pulling it to be tight, holding it with my thumb, and then I'm gonna enter again at approximately the same spot. There we go. And still holding this with my thumb, I'm just gonna pull, and I'm gonna pull this pretty tight. This is why you will not, you can't do this well if you have stuffed this too full, because then your seams might rip. So the important thing is just to pull it through, and then I'm gonna go again, leave a little bit of space there, and I'm gonna go again and do the very same thing. And I will do this as many times as I need to do that, and finish this up. And then I'm gonna come back to you to show how you do the button. Alright, so now I have sewed the petals, and I have my button here. I'm gonna place it there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go with my needle from the bottom, right from here up, come through the button, wherever it is, there, come through the button and sew it on, right here. And I'm gonna finish by coming down from here and tying a couple of knots there, and then bringing my thread up again and cutting it. And that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna come back once I've done that. Okay, so now I have sewn my button on, and here is my finished pincushion. It's really cute, isn't it? Now there's one thing that I want to show you. If this happens to you, what just happened to me, I joined fabrics that are not exactly the same, I don't know what the right word is, but the same like thickness and stuff. And I guess I left too small seam allowances, so this happened. I got a couple of these rips. Now I'm going to show you how you can mend this if this happens to you. So you will need the same embroidery thread that you use to make the petals, and enter in through this middle and maneuver your needle close to the seam, and then start sewing with kind of like, you can do big stitches, small stitches, but it's going to have an even more homespun feel to it. When you go along some of these seams with your thread, you can even go through all of them, and you can even do this step even if you don't have any rips like this. So let me do some of that and then come back to you to show that. So here is my finished pincushion. I ended up going through all these top seams with my embroidery floss, and I think that the end result is so darling and so homespun and sweet. So if you want to make this, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I do hope you have enjoyed watching this tutorial, and remember that you can make this any size that you like, and you can use any kinds of fabrics with this. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Bye!